Hello, hi, howdy ho, and welcome to Cast That Movie, the podcast where two nobodies in the Midwest have a little fun practicing social distancing, I might add, and we recast some failed cinematic projects from the past, as well as a dream project that we would like to see made into a movie. We cast that as well. We assign a director to each project who we feel would be able to give the project the vision that it needs to succeed. I am joined, as always, by the Starsky to my hutch, Tom Van Horton. Say hello, Tom.
Hello, Tom.
Well, Tom, we're back to doing original stuff. We took a little bit of wasn't a hiatus because we were here. We did an episode last time.
We did.
But it was a little bit of a change of pace. It was more of a retrospective is what we ended up calling it. Had a special guest, which was fun. Kind of look back on the first 4 episodes and just kind of took a break, took a breather. You could say phoned it in a bit, but it was still a lot of fun.
We did. You know what? We're allowed. I mean, with everything that was going on, you know what? You made the right call, in my opinion, of doing that. And as you know, I do the other podcast, the Twin Peaks podcast with Joe, who was our special guest. He had a blast. And I think this should be like a semi-regular occurrence, like maybe every 5, 6, 7 handfuls of episode. It's good because, you know what? I said it to him before we started our podcast yesterday. I said, it was really good to have you come there because I'm known for crawling into my own ass sometimes with my pretentiousness. So it's nice to be called out sometimes and go, dude, you totally shit the bed on what you did.
Right. Yeah, I agree on that. But we will definitely have him back, and we will definitely do that again because, you know, as you've stated many times, it's really impossible to get into all the details and everything that we are trying to cover when we do these episodes. We run a little long, I would say, but that being said, it still never seems to be enough time.
We could run a lot longer if you let me go on my tirades and my idiot nerdom about all things pop culture.
Right. Let's quickly here tease what we have in store for this episode. So for the recast project, we are revisiting the worst reviewed movie ever made. That's right, folks. We are doing Ballistic, Ecks versus Sever, a 2002 piece of shit.
Oh, it's so bad.
It's so bad. It's so bad. Starring Antonio Banderas and Lucy Liu. That I saw this in theaters when it came out. I remember vividly because it was, and I knew it at the time, and I was a lot younger then.
Did you go with our buddy? Because our buddy went to it the same. I went to an opening as well.
I went to with one of our buddies. I would
assume it's that one. Okay.
I would assume it's that one too. Yeah, and at the time, I distinctly remembered it being the worst movie that I'd ever seen in a theater by a long shot. It was so bad. And I mean, where to start here? I don't know, not to tease too much, but I am going to kind of be coming at it from a completely different standpoint than what was attempted back in 2002. It's going to be interesting. What are your thoughts on this?
I'm coming at it from a completely different angle as well.
You got to. You
have to.
It was executed so poorly, right?
And again, we'll tease it. There's a lot that went wrong with this movie. A shit ton.
Right.
And when you figure that out, and when you look at everything that occurred in this thing, it's no wonder that you got what you got. And I'll tease a little bit. I'm going to give you guys a teaser because I know we want to get to one of our ads right away here. But there is a link here to another horribly reviewed movie that explains a lot about why this failed.
Now, see, the thing is, I'm kind of interested to hear the rundown here on what happened. because unlike some of the other projects, most specifically The Room, which we did last, well, not last episode, but the episode prior, like I was pretty familiar with the history of that. I learned a few new things from you, but this one, I never bothered. I never felt the inclination to learn what happened, and how this came to be. I just wanted it gone, and I did not want to think about it, spend any of my life pondering it. And then here we are doing a podcast featuring it. So, we're taking one for the team yet again, I guess.
We took one for the team on this one. Yeah. This is bad.
Yeah, don't watch this. Don't watch this original, no matter what, no matter how interesting, and even if you like car crash movies, not movies with car crashes. This has plenty, by the way. But no, if you like movies where train wreck movies, will probably be better. Even if you're into that, like there's not even that kind of guilty pleasure to be found. It is literally mind-numbingly terrible.
This movie commits the cardinal sin of bad movies, which is boring. You can make a really bad movie and make it entertaining by having people chew the scenery or doing things like that, or you can kind of go the opposite route where it's just so low budget, you so just whatever that it becomes entertaining. There's this nexus in between them, which is the difference between the ones that are over the top and the ones that are overly unproduced is there's some entertainment factor to them. The story itself isn't boring.
Right.
What this movie did is made itself boring. I'm not going to look it up because I don't remember the full numbers, but I believe when they say this is the lowest rated movie on Rotten Tomatoes, that's a caveat because they're taking in critics, okay? But this is the one movie that has like 178 critic reviews, and all of them were negative. And that says a lot, because there's movies out there with more ratings and have like a 3% or a 2%, so you could say those are rated higher rated worse, but then they also take into account there's nobody that likes this movie.
Yeah, I'm looking up right now. Now it's 118 critic reviews.
There it is, 118.
Yep. But the audience score, and usually audiences, even if it's terrible, will find something to like. Not so much here. 19%.
Yeah.
I mean, I would always write off 20% of people, as tasteless and whatever, have really no standard for, what should be entertaining. The Kevin James fans, if you will.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. I think Paul Blart Mall Cop 2 was a fucking masterpiece.
Right. But yeah, this 19%, that's unheard of, especially for an action movie. Like, I mean, an action movie is always going to find, like 25% easy, that if it's got explosions and fights, they're like, yep. This one, they were like, no.
Everyone was no on this one. And because also in the action movie, it also created another cardinal sin. There's no action.
Yeah.
This is boring. I mean, this is really, 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 really boring. But we can get into that more afterwards. We've said too much, I think.
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard to it's hard to feel like you're ever over-exaggerating the awfulness of Ballistic, Ecks versus Sever. But yes, let's move on. The original project this week is something that's kind of a present to ourselves, I think is how we labeled it when we first announced it. And it's the Pink Floyd biopic, which I feel is long overdue. I think it's a super, super interesting story. But yeah, we are going to cast the members of Pink Floyd, including Syd Barrett, one of the original members that, let's just say, didn't last too long. So that's going to be, I'm excited for that. I would say I put a lot more thought into that project than I did. And that's not usually, I would say it's not usually the case, or hasn't been for us on the original project versus the remake, but, or the recast is more accurate. But in this case, I really wanted to get it right.
I would agree with that. And I'm going to say right now, there's a lot of things to get into the story of what was Pink Floyd, Joad, we could do probably a 12-hour pod, like a series, like 6 2-hour long podcasts about the story of Pink Floyd. So there's going to be, for all of you really, really huge Pink Floyd fans like myself, again, when I went out and got into their music, I was so hardcore into it that I literally bought their albums in order to hear the progression of them. I bought every single album. And I know, and I've read, and actually the Pink Floyd book was the first and only tablature book of an artist I ever bought for guitar. And there's too much. So we're really going to have to gloss over when we get into like why the Pink Floyd story is fascinating. I will hit some of the high spots. Mm-hmm. But I think to me, that was the most challenging thing about it, because there is so much interesting there that I had to really pare down, like, what is the most interesting thing that I would want to hit while doing this movie? Because that could be that could be a 3-season Netflix show.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, they're a decade-spanning band. I mean, they're not, a flash in the pan like the Doors kind of were. I mean, no disrespect to them, but that was a very short period of time. And even Queen. I mean, Queen was, a decade's worth of projects, basically.
And there is a decade's worth of drama. Like how these guys survived and put out all this great music when you know all this stuff that was going on behind the scenes, and the rivalries and the challenges and oh my god, unbelievable.
I would say, Tom, that we should waste no more time. We have a lot to get to. We are also doing what we do best and playing some games and just having some fun.
Hands are off, bitch.
Yeah, so we're gonna get Rick rolling right into it, and go to our first ad break, and we're gonna come back and start the festivities.
Perfect.
Let's face it, cruise ships are just glamorous petri dishes, majestic hubs for disease and sickness. Is it really worth the risk just to be able to say you rode on a big-ass boat? Presenting Maidenhead Virtual Cruises, a new interactive virtual reality experience that allows you to travel to over a dozen Caribbean and Caribbean-adjacent destinations, all from the comfort and safety of your living room. You'll be able to stop at ports, meet the natives, and butcher their language. But you no longer risk exposing yourself to whatever parasite or virus they're spreading amongst themselves that week. Visit Maidenhead Virtual Cruises on your home computing device today to learn more and get ready to pretend feel that salty sea air and hot equatorial sun on your face. Maidenhead Virtual Cruises, because the real thing has never been less worth the risk. And welcome back to Cast That Movie, and we are going to get into some casting news, Tom. What do you say to some casting news?
We can do some casting news. Do you have anything this week, or you want me to handle this week?
I have nothing. I'm gonna give it all over to you.
All right. So I have something that was very, very, with everything that was going on. This isn't a great casting news, but I loved the interview that they had with this person. Oh, I am so tired of nostalgia porn.
Oh boy.
And they're talking about an all-new reboot for Look Who's Talking.
What?
Yep.
Ugh.
And guess who wants to be on board?
Bruce Willis?
Kirstie Alley and John Travolta.
Oh, God.
Mm-hmm. They want to be in on it, and it was unclear that they would be involved. But on a recent episode of The Talk, Kirstie Alley.
God.
Yep. Christy Alley was asked directly if she would be happy to appear in another Look Who's Talking movie. And she revealed that she already talked to Travolta about it. And they
Oh.
both want to make it happen.
Ugh.
And she
Gross.
says, quote, that this tells you how much they want to make it about them. Okay, this is what this. You're making a reboot. You want to make it about yourselves. It's not what a reboot's about, Christy Alley. But let's listen to what she had to say here. Quote, John and I were both really want to do it because we think it's funny that we're the grandparents. Ugh. She points out that their roles of their characters would be slightly different now. And she goes on the joke that their kids would be ugly so that John and Allie can still be the stars, and says that the grandchildren would be really cute.
What?
That's what she wants it to be. Can you fucking believe? I was just like, the balls, Christy Alley.
Oh my God. Is she starting to slip into whatever Roseanne Barr slipped into as far as her grasp on reality? Because, dear God, no. Nobody would watch that. Nobody.
Nobody would watch that movie.
Oh, man.
Yes. She wants the joke to be that the kids are ugly and it's about the grandkids. So it'd be about the grandparents interacting with the grandkids because no one would want to see the ugly parents.
So does she have that high of an opinion of her own looks, or?
Well, alcoholism's a bitch.
I mean, I'm sorry, but all right, yeah, okay. I don't have anything to add, but all the groaning and moaning and
they're all I could say.
Vomiting in my mouth that I've been doing. That's about all I got. That's terrible news.
It's terrible news. It's terrible news, and they that she and Travolta are already in talks trying to make it happen and make it about them. Oh, yep, man. That's not a reboot. That's not a reboot. That's a sequel.
To be fair, if Travolta is actually like, I mean, maybe she is just nuts, and maybe he like just said it to placate her, like, Christy, sure, let's just talk at 3, ugly kids,
ugly kids. We'll have a delta scene to the music. It would be wonderful.
Cute babies, yeah. No, okay. I don't. Oh God, no. Let's move on. That's depressing. How dare you? Right? How dare you?
If Clint Howard was younger, I'd have him be the kids.
Oh man, I don't think we're gonna go an entire episode without a Clint Howard reference. I think I have come to accept this.
Yeah, absolutely. Clint Howard will always be a part of it.
Yeah, whether he likes it or not, and whether we like it or not. All right. Well, okay. Now that we're past that, let us get into the recast portion of this episode, shall we?
Yes. Let's do this.
Tom, will you please tell us about a little-known 2002 film entitled Ballistic? Ecks versus Sever.
Yeah. Fuck, where do I even start? I think, okay, so I cannot, the director, I cannot pronounce his name, and even no one else could pronounce it, so he went by the name of Chaos, okay? So we're just going to call him Chaos. I'm dead fucking serious. So he had made some international movies in the late 90s, early 2000s, international action movies that caught a lot of attention here in the United States. And he was given the go-ahead by Warner Brothers through a company called Franchise Pictures to make an action movie that was supposed to be action movies or internationally are very different than what they are over here. And, if you ever watched The Raid, you can kind of see that. And if you've ever seen Ong Bak, you can really see that. And this was will be an attempt to bring that over here. The problem was Franchise Pictures. Franchise Pictures is debunked. They were sued after a lot of issues. The number one thing was inflating their budgets for investors in order to launder money.
Oh my God.
So they would over budget these things and say, we're going to need X amount of money, and then spend about 40% of that budget and funnel the rest of the money to themselves. So originally what this was supposed to be Now, Chaos went into hiding for 12 years, essentially, after this movie. And he had an interview just at the tail end of 19. And he really went into a lot of this. And the original idea of this was supposed to be like The Killer versus The Professional. It was supposed to be Chow Yun-fat versus Jean Reno.
Mm.
And they were actually signed on. Franchise Pictures didn't want to pay for them and said that they wouldn't be financially viable, and started going through a lot of these casting choices, a lot of these changes. It was at one point they tried to get Stallone and Diesel, but again, not financially viable. So what they kept doing was getting cheaper actors, and working these things out. The other downside of what happened here, this was being filmed in Bangkok. 9/11 happened during the making of this film. And what happened was it shut production down. They moved everything to Vancouver and had to really change around some of the scenes and some of the other things. And he even said, that the guy that one of the co-owners of franchises, her name was Ellie Samara, was pretty much whoever they were working with at the time. And it would become apparent that they would fall out immediately with these people. So like actors were getting sucked into this Franchise Pictures, and then everyone was having this bad experience. And then it was kind of, this is what they did. And they would work with these people and get them at cheaper prices. So they got Lucy Liu and Antonio Banderas at a fucking steal. And you can see it in the acting. Mm-hmm. And so in the original draft of the movie, two things were supposed to occur. That when Sever kidnaps Ecks' son, and the whole time the boys kept in a kid-sized glass box just big enough for him to sit in on, placed on top of a kilo of C4. That's what he wanted. And the other one was there wasn't really supposed to be the motivations for the characters were really changed. These guys were just supposed to have, there will be these two people that were professional hitmen that wanted to hate each other. And so they made them change it to where Gant kills X's wife and takes her son, and both believing they're dead. And so, that's really what was like, that whole element of what was written originally for the original script wasn't there. And Warner Brothers and Franchise Pictures put in this whole thing after people had signed on to it and trying to change the script around, which has been a common theme. These actors come in excited for a script that they got, and they walk in and they have a whole new script in front of them.
Yes. So
those were the two main killers for it. The other thing was that when he was doing the editing for it, he went in, created basically a first cut. That was it. It was just a first cut. And sent it to the studio, and he came back the next day, and Franchise Pictures and Warner Brothers fired his editor, fired him, and edited it themselves. And after consulting with his agents at the CAA, they just said, hey, just walk away and we'll get you a new job. And the movie came out. He could not get another job for years.
Oh, my God. Poor Chaos.
Poor Chaos. Yeah. Like this, he was supposed to come in with this whole thing, make this whole Western thing. He did the first draft, and they said whatever it was that they saw went nope. And Franchise, probably because it was too much, and Franchise and Warner Brothers edited it themselves and put it out there.
Yuck.
Mm-hmm.
So
those are the two big things that really occurred with this, was that what you saw, what you got was not even like draft fucking 3 of the script. Was not supposed to happen. It was really supposed to be a mindless action film. A la, what we saw, like The Raid. If you ever saw The Raid, there is like no exposition. There's no nothing. It is like they set up a short story, and then it is nothing but nonstop action. And that's what a lot of those international Hong Kong, Bangkok films were.
Right.
And they brought him in saying, we're going to let you do that, and then took it all away from him.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, and then the movie was released and bombed terribly. Although, if I remember right, I believe they made a video game out of
They
it.
they did. So the video game actually did very well, which is kind of the weird thing. Most games that are based on movies, and what it was yeah, the video game was actually really good. Um, More like what the movie should have been, and did very well, and actually produced a sequel, which
Hmm.
wasn't as well received. But yes, it was supposed to be this video game tie-in. The video game, much like The Matrix, was being made at the same time as the movie was,
Right.
and the video game was well more received than the movie was.
Yeah. I always wonder too, like the title of the movie, Ballistic: Ecks versus Sever. Like it's such an odd title that it almost leads you to believe that they're trying to set up for a franchise, I guess franchise films, right? Like, or was it franchise films or franchise pictures, whatever you said it was.
Hmm.
Um, was there like a grand design here that just never panned out, or was that just randomly a awkwardly clunky title that they applied?
So the original script was called X versus Sever,
Okay.
and they decided that they didn't like that title, and they wanted to make it a franchise, not necessarily the same people going against each other, but this idea that it was a ballistic film where you were going to see two badass hitman or police or whatever it may be
Hmm.
going against each other.
Two
And he was
toughs.
two toughs, and he was a fan of this movie called Bullet, which was an international film, so he suggested Ballistic as a joke, and that he thought it was going to be X versus Sever Ballistics, and it was Ballistic X versus Sever, and he said that pretty much sums up my entire experience for this movie.
Bass
That they
Ackwards.
Yeah, that they wouldn't even let me title my own movie.
Wow. So yeah, it's terrible. Just terrible, awful. Let's start talking about then what we would do different if we were, in the producer's chair, and what kind of talent we would want to put around this to try to change the outcome. I'm going to let you start. Who would be the visionary director that you would put in charge? It sounds like a whole lot of this can't be laid at Chaos's feet. Not saying the movie he would have made, his cut would have been good. But I mean, when you take complete creative control away from a director and let, studio heads piece together a movie, that's how you get a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. And you don't even get a guilty pleasure sense out of it. So who would you replace Chaos with?
So yeah, I agree with that, and I don't blame. Knowing what I know about this movie, there was nothing he could have done. He was walking into a fucking an ambush on this
Hmm.
one. I had two, narrowed it down to two, and I decided to go away from one because you had already picked that director for something. So I
Okay.
wanted to bring some new blood into this, and I picked a director that you probably don't know, which is I'm gonna have butcher the name, and I apologize. Prachia Piganow, who directed, who that year would become famous for Tony Ya's what the hell is that movie called? Ong Bak.
Okay. Which you had mentioned earlier
Hmm.
as being what the kind of vein they were looking for.
Absolutely.
So you would be basically looking, it would still be, I mean, it wasn't straight up action, but that's what I think they originally had in mind. So you would keep it kind
I
of
would
in
have
the same.
I would have no, I would have gone completely different. I would have made this a mindless action film. I would have taken away the plot. And you'll see with some of the people I'm picking, every one of them in some way has been involved in an action film.
Hmm.
Unlike a lot of these people that were in this fucking movie, outside of Ben Antonio and Lucy Liu,
Hmm.
I would have gone more like set up a plot of these two fucking hate each other. This is why, and they just fucking ran like 13 assassins. One start of the town all the way to the other side of the town. It would have just been a 1 day, hour and a half long real time action fight.
Just an orgy of blood and firefights.
And chaos. Absolutely.
Chaos.
Chaos.
13 Assassins is so good.
So good. So good.
I went in a different direction.
Okay.
What I decided to do was, see, this movie to me feels like its biggest flaw is that it takes itself seriously.
Okay.
That is its biggest flaw because it is so bad and it's so over the top that it feels like a parody that it's not in on its own joke.
Okay.
I would have made them in on their own joke. I would have tried to make this a action comedy. I want to say something kind of in the vein of like a Get Smart,
Cop Out. You would have done Cop Out
or 48 Hours. No, not Cop Out. No, I did not pick Kevin Smith. Although to be fair, I guess my choice. I don't know that he has this kind of range. Just as we learned, Kevin Smith doesn't have that kind of range. But I'm willing to give him a try because I love his work. I'm going with David Wayne, director of Wet Hot American Summer.
Hell yeah. I love Dana Wayne. I could totally see that. Yes. So then you would have the Showalter involved as well with that, I'm guessing, in the writing.
Yeah, in the writing, sure. I'll say right now he's not a part of the cast. It's still going to be there's an action, certainly it's an action forward movie, but it's, I won't say Naked Gun style or Airplane style humor, slapsticky kind of thing, but midway between there and what we saw. So
when I hear that, I'm thinking something like Kung Fu Hustle or Kung Pao, in the terms of you're just kind of going over the top in on the joke kind of.
Yeah, I would say Kung Fu Hustle much, much closer than Kung Pao.
Okay.
Into what I'd be trying to accomplish. But yeah, again, they'd be in on the joke, but it would actually be well done, enough and funny enough. And again, I got nothing really to base picking him on as far as like, can he make like a Get Smart or a Kung Fu Hustle? I don't know. I like his humor enough. I think he would find all the humor, that is at his disposal in this kind of a project, and roll with it. And I think he would rely heavily on the cast. So I put a lot of thought into what kind of actors I would surround him with to help him kind of realize the vision.
So I just want to jump in here a second and back up just a little bit to where the movie was. There's two things that stood out to me in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
The only entertaining part of this movie is there is a scene where a Sever is fighting a bunch of SWAT force people, and one of them falls off a building, lands on the hood or the roof of a car so hard that the tires blow off,
yes,
and hits another fucking dude in the face. And I laughed out loud when I saw it. I was like, how did this get a 0? Oh my God. That's where it ended. The other thing was the added plot line of the family that they put in. Knowing that they added that explains how it's so poorly written. Okay, so I don't give a fuck about spoilers here. You find out that the main villain, Gant, faked the death of both Ecks and X's wife, okay? In the same fucking parking lot. He blows up one of the cars, then starts taking her away and blows up the other car. Neither one of them went to each other's funeral. Like, none of them have mutual friends that would go, by the way, your wife or your husband's not dead.
Right.
Like, the plot line of it was so, like, immediately, like, there's this giant gaping plot hole. When I found that out, that I just stopped thinking for a minute and paused the movie and went, this doesn't work.
But it would work if all these obvious oversights and continuity issues were tongue in cheek, were winking at the audience type things, and that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, you know what? now that I think about it, a better representation would be a loaded weapon.
Yeah, well, no, I don't know. That's still going in the Naked Gun direction. There is that, but I just don't want to take it to that extreme. Like I said, maybe like a loaded weapon mixed with a Get Smart, that kind
Yep.
of a vibe.
Yep. Okay.
Um, but yeah, I mean, that's just another example I'm thinking of here is so when he gets recruited, because he's 7 years he's been off the job because he's been mourning his supposedly dead wife, and
Yep.
so an FBI agent comes and recruits him, and tells him at the end of the conversation that his wife is alive. Meanwhile, how does he know this? And why didn't they? We find out Gant and him were ex-partners, I believe, wasn't it?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And
He was known as Clark then. He was known as Clark.
yeah,
Great writing.
right. And so nobody shows him, and they have a picture of the other guy, Ross, the guy
Ross.
played by Darth Maul. But they don't have any, don't know what Gant looks like, but yet they know ultimately that he has X's supposedly dead wife as his new wife. There's no thread. I mean, it's so all over the place, and just the action sequences. There's no build up to them that makes any sense. People are just they find each other without any sort of trail. I mean, it's just like all of a sudden they're there.
They're there. They show up. Yep.
Sever,
Yeah.
especially, she's just all of a sudden she knows where to be at all times
At all times.
without
Yeah.
any knowledge. I mean, it's just so that's what I mean. Like, if you're gonna go over the top and be stupid, you need to be stupid. So yeah, I mean, I guess that would be something between Get Smart and Loaded Weapon 1 would probably be right in the sweet spot for what I'm aiming for here.
And you
So-
brought up another really good plot point hole that bothered me was the fact that this guy Clark was an agent, worked with everyone that was involved in this, and for 7 years, no one put two and two together that this was the same fucking person.
Yeah.
I'm not buying it. All right, there you go.
It's ridiculous. It's just there's so much. It's ridiculous on top of ridiculous.
Yeah.
So my ex
Yes.
to match my David Wayne helmed project is somebody that I thought of as soon as I saw Antonio Banderas's FBI badge, because when you see the picture and the pose that Antonio Banderas, this sexy, almost over the shoulder thing, I thought that's Blue Steel Ben Stiller.
Oh,
Ben Stiller's
love it.
my guy.
Love it. Mm-hmm.
Ben Stiller could do a parody version of a character like that and just knock it out of the park.
So mine, I'm gonna say I took a lot of we're recasting a movie, so I have the brilliancy of being on the armchair and have hindsight of who became really good actors or action actors at that time. I picked for my ex, again going for more of an action based thing, and it proved he can do action over and over. And I love the man, and we've cast him before. Christian Bale.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't go wrong with Christian Bale in any kind of a film.
And I think for a heavy action film where I'm not looking for a lot of things, just that, again, the looks, the things like that, a lot of my film would be more based upon the way people can emote. That's I wanted to see. I could see Christian Bale emoting his anger, emoting as he's doing these things, as he's doing the running, as he's doing the chasing, as he's doing the fight scenes.
Okay, so who is his versus? Who is Sever?
So I kept female, knowing full well they wanted male or female, and I picked someone that got broke out and proved in TV that she could do a lot of action and has done some movies since then, but she was just breaking out as the amazing, sexy, badass number 6 in Battlestar Galactica, Trisha Helfer.
Interesting. I decided to actually keep it in the category here. I went with an Asian American actress for my Sever, but one that is known, I guess, more for her comedy chops than Lucy Liu. I went with Sandra Oh.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Ben Stiller versus Sandra Oh.
That'd be hilarious. I'd see that movie. I would see that movie.
That is happening.
So who'd you pick as your Gant then? Who's the big bad for you?
Big bad. All right. I want a guy that can be smarmy and over the top, but I don't know. Usually the bad guys in movies like this are also kind of sexy, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I know his name offhand. I didn't bother to like write it down, but the guy that did play Gant, I actually liked that actor. I thought he wasn't a bad casting for that kind of a role.
No, he
Uh,
wasn't.
he was really good in Payback. I don't know if you ever saw the Mel Gibson
Yep.
movie.
I watched part of it on TV, and he was just underused in this movie. I completely agree with
Yeah,
you.
I think he's a guy that never got his break, and I'd probably be happy to cast him at some point in another project if he
Mm-hmm.
fits the role. But I went with a former TV actor that I think would just throw people for a loop playing this kind of a character and just over the top bad. Again, cartoonishly evil
Yep.
is what he'd be doing here, and I'm going with John Stamos.
Okay.
All right,
All right. We'll have to unpack that bitch.
have mercy.
I forget. Again, I don't mind the guy. I went more on looks on this one, and it's someone I casted before as well. It's not really a throwaway, but again, mine's more action based. I think this guy somewhat looks like him, Sean Bean, because he's gonna die at the end anyways. So, and he could play a villain. He was great in the James Bond. What's that?
Oh, are you thinking of Patriot games?
No,
With
I'm
Sean
not.
Bean?
No. He was one of the villains in one of the was it GoldenEye or one of the Pierce Brosnans. He was one of the villains.
Oh, was he? Okay.
Yeah,
I
he
don't.
was. Yeah, he was.
I've never been big into Bond. I'll admit. I've seen most. I think of the Daniel Craigs, but I never was really into it.
Yeah, he was one of the Pierce Brosnan villains.
Okay. Well, he also played the main villain, if I remember right, in Patriot Games with Harrison Ford, based on the
I
Tom
believe you're right as
Clancy
well. Yep.
novel. So he's a solid villain. So then who did you take for your Ross?
Oh, I was so excited when Darth Maul was supposed to be in this movie. He's an amazing stuntman, amazing fighter. He doesn't do dick.
He's
He
not an
doesn't.
actor.
He's not an actor. And again, I went off of looks, and I'm like, you know what? He's easily replaced by Ryan Reynolds.
Ryan Reynolds in 2002, huh?
Like I said, I'm going hindsight. He's done action. I understand that, but he was looking for. I know he would have taken it. He would have taken it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
He took Green Lantern. He would have taken this.
Yeah. I went with I wanted again somebody with comedy chops, but for this role, I wanted to keep him British and thuggish, but more of an imposing presence than Darth Maul without the makeup, right?
Mhm.
So I wanted the guy who was really hot at the time, had proven that he had the comedic timing to make scenes work and make laughs happen, but also fit well into an action movie. I went with, and this would have been circa Snatch, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. I went with Vinnie
Ooh,
Jones.
yeah,
Vinnie
Vinny
Jones.
Jones. Vinny Jones would have been a good choice. Absolutely. And finally, who'd you go for the wife, Vin/Rain? Because she has two names in this movie.
Yeah, I don't know. This one I just went with somebody I like. I don't think the role is so. Unfortunately, it's a very empty role. There's not a lot there, so I went with somebody that I thought could make more of it than there is, and also can be incredibly funny and find a laugh where there are no laughs to be found
Hmm.
in the original. I went with Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Okay. Well, Joe would approve. Joe would approve. He's a big
Yeah, well,
Seinfeld fan.
yeah, and her and Ben Stiller. I mean,
Yes. Oh, yes. They could play off each other very
yeah,
well.
yes,
Again, in my role, she would have been involved more. I went action, and this is someone who proved she could do it. I'm not a huge fan of hers per se, but for what it is and what she does very well.
hmm
Mila Jovovich.
Okay, sure.
Yep. Because I would have had her be involved in the fight scenes as well. I would have had everybody fighting in this movie.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Let's talk about our pick, shall we?
Yeah.
All right.
Two very different views
Yeah.
of the movie.
And these are always the hardest to kind of like either of us to concede on because my picks would not fit into your film and your picks would struggle to fit into mine.
Absolutely.
So the director, I had David Wayne, and you had the Ong Bak director. Can you remind?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
We'll just call him Preacher. Or
Yeah,
Preacher.
is it really worth debating like whose is better? Like, I mean, for the movies we're each trying to make here, I mean, we got, I think, people that would I would probably argue, playing devil's advocate, yours is maybe more of a proven entity in the genre that we're aiming for, each of us. David and Wayne action. Off the top of my head can't think anything that's really had any action element. Maybe, if you want to count the fight or the
Fights
dancing. I was gonna say the dancing scenes and the training montage and Wet Hot American Summer.
I would argue and say, 'cause, especially the later ones on Netflix where he's got the fight scenes with Chris Maloney and things like that. They're entertaining and they're not bad. They're not bad. So I would argue on the other side and say, no, he's shown that he could do it in small chunks. So why not give him a go and let him do a full fucking 90-minute movie?
Oh, thanks for that. And yeah, with Chris Maloney and John Hamm, that was actually pretty badass.
It was really badass.
And it was
super
funny.
Badass. Yeah. Didn't
Okay,
make sense they were friends at the end of it, but sure, why not?
So we each like each other's picks or like respect them. I don't think we're really like, neither of us are a loser in this scenario. Would you agree?
I would completely agree.
All right. So then for the role of Ecks, you picked Christian Bale. I picked Ben Stiller. I love me some Christian Bale, but I am going to argue that for the type of movies we're making, I think there would have been better options than Christian Bale.
I would agree with that, and I kind of thought about that. He would, and again, this is early time. But again, I would say I'm arguing my point on this one is that there's not a whole lot of talking. It's a lot of emoting, and that's the reason why you can have those fight scenes, and I think that with Christian Bale, the faces he can make and do those things, that's why I wanted him there, because the emotion and what's going on inside of them is what's going to be telling the story. That is why I want it, because I'm not going to have like the one-liners and the quips and things like that. It's going to be a lot of fighting, so it's going to have to be a guy being really intense, and then when the ambush comes in or something happens, he's going to have to emote that he's surprised. He's got the emote, those type of things. And I was more so basing Christian Bale on his ability to do face and show emotion in his acting, and he is someone that when he is acting, he gets really in the character.
Okay. But do you need a lot of emotion in stuff when it's just 90 minutes of pure action start to front?
I think, one of the things that I would argue about that I really liked about 13 Assassins was that you could really see what the characters were, that the main characters that you cared about, what they were thinking and feeling in the fight, even though you weren't given any dialogue.
Sure. Okay, so are we sticking to our corners again?
I'm sticking to it. I'm not even going to argue with Ben Stiller because he showed he can kind of do stuff like that with Starsky and Hutch. So, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so Sever, I had Sandra Oh, and you had Battlestar Galactica actress. What was her name again?
Tricia Helfer.
Okay. I mean...
And
I'm going to say...
Yeah, go for it.
I'm going to play this card, I think. The only person of color that we're recasting for this film, and you whitewashed it, buddy.
You could say I whitewashed it, but again, I had the background of knowing that this could have been Diesel, Stallone, Chow Yun-Fat, or Jean Reno. So I did have that background that they, it wasn't even supposed to be a woman. So I did keep the woman aspect of it because I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. Yes, I will say I whitewashed it in terms of that. But I mean, I don't want to argue because Lucy Liu can do action. That's what sucks. Antonio Banderas can do action. My God, the Mariachi trilogy is amazing. Right. Lucy Liu is fucking amazing, and you squandered it. So that was where I kind of had a hard time with it. The reason I went with Tricia Helfer at the time is because she was badass in Battlestar Galactica with a lot of the fight scenes and things like that of that nature. And I was looking for someone that year that was action and wasn't doing other work outside of that. She totally could have on TV production taken the 8 weeks and made this fucking movie.
So we're once again.
I'm sticking with it. Yeah, I'm sticking with it.
Man, we are stubborn tonight.
We are.
All right. Well, I got a hope on this next one. I pulled out the Stamos card, brother.
Dude, that's like me I'm sorry. That's like me pulling out a fucking Scott Baio card. What are you doing? What are you doing with the Stamos? Why are you casting Stamos in anything that we do?
It's a comedy. Was on a major sitcom for 7 seasons.
He wasn't funny in it. No.
He's talented though. He's good. He's good. I like John Stamos.
Oh man.
You can't tell me you wouldn't like to see John Stamos play a smarmy dick.
That would have been a negative to me. There's a couple of actors out there where there's a factor. LL Cool J is one of them. John Stamos is another. If I hear John Stamos is in a movie, I kind of go, just like there's actors where I hear they're in it, I go, yes, I'm going to see it. When I hear Stamos is in a movie, I kind of go, that's not something I ever need to see.
I take a little bit of umbrage you comparing him to LL Cool J, but who did you have again for your Gant? I forget.
I had Sean Bean.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, and it was whatever with that one, because I just more so honestly went off of looks. He can do some fight scenes, but I'll argue against my pick on my point is that he's not in a really great established action star. A lot of his fight scenes would have to be like what you're seeing when you watch a Sean Bean movie and he's in an action scene. A lot of close-ups, a lot of things where you're not seeing what he's doing because he has the look, not necessarily the ability. So I will even go against mine and say maybe not the best choice for what I was trying to do there. But at the same time, it's not fucking John Stamos. Sorry, dude. I don't like the Stamos. I don't.
Oh God. Well, I do. So
that's more love to you, man. You can how about this? I'll keep Clint. You keep Stamos.
I mean, I don't have that kind of love for him, but
Rough Macho. Then I'll keep Macho, and you can have
Stamos. Can have all the Macho you want.
Stamos you want.
So that's 0 for 4. We usually at least give a few by this point, or give a couple of them. We rarely are just locked on our own picks, but Vinnie Jones for Ross, man.
You know what? I will give you that one because Vinnie Jones can fit mine as well.
Yeah, he could fit in pretty much.
As much as I like Ryan Reynolds, I will say that Ryan Reynolds was just coming off of Van Wilder, was built, but hadn't done any action movies yet. Mine was a hindsight pick. So yes, that I will give you. I will give you Vinnie Jones because he could do the comedy. Because yes, Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels, but he can also play an amazing badass and be a formidable figure.
Okay, well,
I mean, this is a guy who has the famous pick of grabbing a ref by the nuts in rugby. So yeah.
He's your classic hooligan, no doubt. So for Vin, I had Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and remind me again, who did you have?
Mila Jovovich.
Oh, okay. Man, can I?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, can I say neither?
Yeah. Yes.
I don't know. I picked her because I thought she'd pair well with Ben Stiller. She's funny. I don't know.
This is the thing. That character wasn't supposed to exist originally.
Right.
So, yes, I can totally agree with you in saying that. No, because I think in both of our visions of it, mine's probably closer to what Chaos wanted.
Right.
And in Chaos Vision, that wasn't a factor into it. It was just supposed to be the kid, and Ecks and Sever are fighting over the kid. It was supposed to be the whole fucking driving force of the whole fucking movie.
Yeah. There would be no kid in mine that would get away with that right quick. I would like to have the Vin character, maybe not even in the same way she's presented in the actual movie, but maybe just have this major cop out in the end where we think she's dead the whole time, and then she's just there, and none of it makes sense, and it's all just laughable. It's just an excuse for a Julia Louis-Dreyfus cameo.
And I picked Mila because if I was going to use the original script, the minute she found out that her husband was alive and her kid was taken, she would have just gone in and been like, "I'm fucking shut up with you." There you go.
All right. Well, again, I'm not conceding because I don't like either of our picks all
I
that much.
don't like either of our picks either.
So, all right. Well, whatever. It is what it is. It's either way, it would have been better than what we were presented with. I have
Oh,
no doubt about that.
no, anything would have been better than this. Anything would have at least gotten a 1% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah,
That
one.
what all we needed to win here was 1% better. That's all we
Yeah.
needed, Joad. And
Yes.
I would say that either of our recastings and redoing of the movie would have gotten us that 1% on Rotten Tomato.
5 easy, man. 5% easy.
Easy. How do you get a 0%?
We would be in like movie 49 like space at that point. I think that's what it was called, movie 49. I don't know, whatever. Paul Blart. Okay.
Paul Blart. Mall Cop.
All right, I think we're good on the Ballistic Ecks versus Sever. It was not a fun thing to revisit, but it was kind of fun to reimagine it into something that we would want to watch. So that's kind of the point of the show. So I think we knocked it out of the park in that regard. Let's go to another ad break, and we'll come back with more things, more this is and that's is.
This is
This is
This is
we'll be right back. My name is Chef Chet Chad, and I'm super excited to tell you about my latest beverage concoction. A brand new energy drink that combines the hearty acidity of the sexy tomato and the homey starch of the humble potato. Plus, a healthy dose of caffeine to propel you through the day. Introducing Chef Chet Chad's Pomato Juice. Look, folks, who doesn't love the tomato? Who doesn't love the potato? Who doesn't love veggie-based energy drinks? Trust me, this will change your life for the better. It's the most natural energy drink you never knew you needed. Tomato, tomato, potato. Yes and yes, pomato. Chef Chet Chet's Pomato Juice. You're welcome, world. Welcome back, folks, to Cast That Movie. Tom, let's keep things rocking and rolling and get into the game we love to play, a game that we call Is This Where Are They Now?
Oh, I love this game. All right, pants are off. I'm getting hard. Let's do it.
Ew. All right.
Oh, you love it. Shut the fuck up.
I'm going to go first, okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
So
You said you because I have a micro penis, right? Is that what you said to you?
So Tom, are you familiar with the actor by the name of Philip Moon?
I'm not familiar with an actor by the name of Philip Moon.
Well, this might help. Are you familiar with a film project called The Big Lebowski?
Oh, I'm totally familiar with The Big Lebowski.
Philip Moon is the Chinaman who pees on dudes wet.
Brilliant.
Better known as the character Wu.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to tell you what Philip Moon is up to these days. And for those not familiar, the point of this game is Tom is going to hear what I tell him and determine at the end of it if I am telling him the truth about where is he now, Philip Moon, or if I am making it all up. Okay?
All right, let's hear it.
Okay, so Philip's career kind of stalled out a bit after The Big Lebowski. It wasn't a big role, but it was a memorable role, and he never was able to really parlay that into anything but basically guest starring roles on television dramas like CSI, Deadwood. Once that kind of petered off, he went back to doing theater, which is where he had started. And then he had gone to soap operas, then eventually to film, Big Lebowski, so on. So he went back to theater, and that eventually petered out as well. In 2013, he and his wife, Darla, started a company called Mad Hatter Juice that created premium flavored vape fluid for e-cigarettes. The inspiration for the company's name came from where the couple had originally met as co-stars in a stage production of Alice in Wonderland at the Amundsen Theater in Los Angeles, where Darla played Alice and Philip was, of course, the Mad Hatter. The couple divorced in 2018, but they remain business partners as Mad Hatter Juice is now worth more than $24 million. Tom, is this true, yay or nay?
I don't know the answer to this one. I'm going to go not true, only because we've had enough time for you to make a fake one.
You're correct.
Yeah!
Yes. Yes. It is fake. Now, Mad Hatter Juice does exist. They produce I Love Salts vape line, which is what we get the luau lemonade here in the McDougal house. I don't know. Did I ever introduce myself at the top of the show? I don't think I did. I'm Joad McDougal, by the way, everybody.
You did. You did.
Did I really? For some
did.
reason, I'm just feeling like I didn't, and I just need to make sure that gets out there at some point in this episode, even if it's by the end. But yes, that company exists. They're very successful. He's got nothing to do with it. He's got a couple more credits, since then. He just kind of pokes around, gets work where he can. I don't know if he's married, if his wife is named Darla. I don't know if he ever did theater.
Okay.
I have no idea really what he's up to these days, other than,
this is another one. This is another one we don't know where they are now.
No, I mean, he's still working. He's got credits up to a couple of years ago at least. So
okay.
He's just a guy that gets gigs where he can, I guess. I don't know. I decided to make something up completely out of whole cloth without any interesting story to back it up. And I
like that. You made, the details, everything. It felt like I was reading someone's wiki. So I will say you did very well. You did very well. I just banked on.
Yeah, the Amundsen Theater does exist in Los Angeles. I did use a real theater.
Yep, I liked it. I could tell the effort put into it. And like I said, I did not know the answer to that one.
All right.
I had no fucking clue.
All right, mine you may know, and I may be fucked.
Oh boy.
Are you familiar with an actor by the name of
Isaac Lidsky?
I don't believe I am, not by name anyway. How would I know him?
Are you familiar with a show called Saved by the Bell, The New Class?
Not nearly to the extent I was familiar with Saved by the Bell, The Old Class. So I don't know who that is. Was he the Screech of their
He was
of their group?
As Weasel. He was cast as Weasel. Yep.
Weasel. Okay.
Weasel was their Screech for the Saved by the Bell, The New Class. Yes, he was. Okay. So Isaac Lidsky was born in and grew up in Miami. His parents were Jewish immigrants from Cuba. He was a child actor, where he was in diaper commercial when he was 6 months old, and went on to be in more than 100 commercials. Well, in 1993, he was cast as Weasel. Also in 1993, he was diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa, a retinal degenerative disease, which leads to progressive sight loss and blindness. Saved by the Bell, The New Class did not do well, so he left Hollywood in 1994 to attend college, where he graduated from Harvard University in 1999 with an honors degree in mathematics and computer science. He then went back to Harvard in 2001 to study law. He graduated magna cum laude from the Harvard Law School in 2004. While there, he served as an editor to the Harvard Law Review and was a fellow to the Berkman Center for Internet and Society. After a brave stint of practicing law for an international law firm, in 2011 he partnered with a roommate called Zach Merriman to acquire a small business. They purchased the assets of one Orlando Decorative Concrete Inc. and created the ODC Construction LLC. It is a shell contractor, and it builds structural envelopes for new homes, including the foundations, masonry, frames, trusses. In 2014, they had $7 million in revenue. He had gone completely blind by this point and became a public speaker for the company and his experiences in corporations and organizations. In 2015, he sold his first book called Eyes Wide Open. overcoming obstacles and reorganizing opportunities in a world that can't see clearly. It was published in 2017. Joad.
Am I bullshitting you or telling you the truth?
Wow, that's a good one. No, I'm not. You are not screwed here. I have no idea who this person is. I don't think I ever did watch Saved by the Bell, the new class, actually.
You didn't miss anything.
This is I hate it. I'm going to say true.
You are correct.
Oh. Whew.
Yep.
Damn.
Yep. You are correct, sir. He also went on, when he was in law, to actually work with Ruth Ginsburg, but I took that out because I figured you might know because you know politics.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I guess legislative branch, or like actually that's
the judicial branch.
Judicial branch. Yeah, I know politics so good, Tom. I know I'm so good at politics. No, I have never heard of him. Good for him. Sounds like he's lived a very productive life. It was a good story. It could have been a very you've thrown some very well detailed stories that have been false. So I did consider it for a brief second, but in the end, I was hoping it was true. I think is what that was.
I honestly thought that having a blind guy write a book called Eyes Wide Open would have tricked you. That's why I left it there, because I was like, God, that is so.
You know what?
If you would have,
if it would have been, if you hadn't read the slug that came after it, or whatever the other part of the title, and just left it there, that might have tipped me over. Like just Eyes Wide Open and that's it. But you read the whole entire the colon, the rest of the title, and that was like, that sounds legit. Actually, that sounds real.
I didn't feel comfortable truncating the title of the book.
No, that's cool and that's fair. All right, well, that's fun. That's always fun.
Yeah.
So
my erection is rock hard and it's a full 1 inch.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yep. So neither of us fooled each other. So
nope.
Aren't we proud of each other?
I'm still up by 1, bitch.
All right, now I'm excited because now we get into the I would say the feature, the main event.
I'm excited for this.
The original project. This episode is the Pink Floyd story, the Pink Floyd film. We'll just call it Pink Floyd. I would hope most people know or have heard of, or are at least somewhat familiar with Pink Floyd. Tom, why don't you go ahead and tell them what they need to know?
Yeah, how much time do I have on this?
Give you like 10 minutes here.
Okay, all right. This is plentiful. I can combine this law down. So if you're not familiar with Pink Floyd, you are. You've heard, especially off of Wish You Were Here, the album, the Wall album, Dark Side of the Moon. Dark Side of the Moon is actually the #1 selling album of all time. Not just consistently of just numbers of sold. That statistically, it's always playing somewhere around the world at some point. Like that's how many people have owned Dark Side of the Moon throughout the years, and how much it's sold since 1973. That statistically, it is always playing somewhere at some time. What do you need to know? Pink Floyd was originally. The original members were Syd Barrett, Roger Waters, David Gilmour, Nick Mason, and actually a guitarist by the name of Klaus. They started a band. They actually went by several different names to begin with. They were known as the Megadeths, the Abdabs, the Screaming Abdabs, Leonard's Lodgers, and the Spectrum 5 before settling on the name T-Set. Well, right before they were going to go up on a gig in the mid-'60s, another band opened for them called the T-Set. So they quickly...
What are the odds, man?
What are the odds, right? So, a spur-of-the-moment name change based upon two of Syd Barrett's favorite musicians called Pink Anderson and Floyd Council. They changed their name at that show to the Pink Floyd Sound. At that time, they're doing mostly rhythm and blues music before they fell into partners, Jenner and King, with Black Hill Enterprises, and dropped the sound and became Pink Floyd and started getting into the underground 60s psychedelic movements. By 1967, that had really begun to take its toll on Syd Barrett as he was regularly using LSD. And by the time they had their third gig on the BBC's Top of the Pops, he was completely distanced from everything that was going on, to the point where he wasn't even miming what he was supposed to be singing. They had them queued up. He wasn't even playing guitar. He was just staring off. This will resonate with people if you've seen The Wall, the movie. Jenner and his assistant June Child came to a dressing room and found him so gone. He was on the floor. Roger Waters had to get him up on his feet and get him out on stage, where he just stood there with the guitar around his neck and his arms hanging down. They had to shoot him up to kind of get him going. And by this point, they started to realize that he needed to be replaced, which sucked, because from their formative years of starting everything, he was Pink Floyd. He wrote everything, did the lyrics. Him and actually Rick Wright were the two main musical forces for the band. So in 1967, they added a fifth member called David Gilmour. They had known each other. And
I gotta stop you there then, because you had mentioned David. I wanted to say something at the time. You had mentioned David Gilmour was one of the original members. I think you meant Nick Mason.
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry, Nick Mason. My apologies. Thank you for correcting me right there.
Yep.
It was Syd Barrett, Nick Mason, Roger Waters, and Rick Wright.
And then the other guy that didn't,
Klaus, that they got rid of real quick. He didn't stay around very long. He left when they were still the T set.
Yeah, so spoiler alert, we do not cast Klaus in this project.
No.
Go on.
No, and Gilmour had actually gone and saw them as the T set and was a fan. And he was hired on with a salary of £30 per week. So, which is the equivalent of $500 a week.
Money!
The idea originally was that they felt that, now, there's a lot of ideas about what was going on with Syd Barrett and his breakdown, and there's been a lot of things on that. There's been a lot of other people's point of view. You have the idea that he did way too many drugs, and Mason is a subscriber to that. Some of the other members of the band think that he was having more of a nervous breakdown from everything that was going on, not very much unlike what Tom York of Radiohead was going through when they had their big album OK Computer. Mm-hmm. The other people were that he said he was schizophrenic. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know what is the true lens and what it is. Is it a combination thereof? Was it one of those three things? I honestly, I don't know the truth of what it was. So by this time, they did the Saucer Full of Secrets, and that was their second album. It's the only album to have all five members of the band in it. And apparently, Barrett was still with it enough to write a song called Jug Band Blues, which is basically, the lyrics are, "It's awfully nice of you to consider me even though I'm not here," which is a paraphrase of it. So he knew he was being kicked out of the band, and the Jug Band Blues was about him being kicked out of the band. He wrote his own song about him being removed from his own band. At this point, Waters began to start doing some of the writing. He wrote one song on Saucer on Piper at the Gates of Dawn, which was their first album. It's a terrible song. So during this period, there's a lot of tension going on because there's no clear leader in the band. So they start, and they have no musical direction, but they know they want to keep going. So they're doing a lot of experimental albums and experimental music, and even come up with an album on Umaguma where it kind of was a competition album. They were all writing, there's a part where they all wrote their own songs. And the idea was, the better of the songs is going to kind of determine on where we go as leaders here. And, even though I felt Gilmour had some better songs on it, because Roger Waters had been with the band longer, Waters kind of started to come out more of the leader and started really growing as a musical writer. And Dark Side of the Moon changed everything. Mm-hmm. He wrote most of the lyrics for that. There's the rumor that they did do that in conjunction with Wizard of Oz. Some people say no. Some people say yes.
Have you done the Wizard of Oz experiment? I assume you've done it. I haven't
I've done
myself.
the Wizard of Oz experiment.
And is it as billed?
It is. I mean, there's some stretches with it, I believe, but because some people say you got to play it through. Now, again, I didn't have the LP. I'm doing off a CD, so the syncing was a little bit more difficult than it would be if I had a turntable and could sync it up. I bet it'd be better. That being said, especially during the first, like people say, then put it on repeat and it works. That doesn't work. But yeah, you can go on YouTube and see it. There's several people that have synced it up to YouTube. But yes, I've done it, and actually I went to a Pink Floyd Laser Light show where they did it at the Laser Light show, and it does work. And there is mention of people that were in the recording there that Wizard of Oz was playing on a TV consistently during the recording. So during this time too, they also tried to make an album called The Body of Sounds, where it was very much like Lou Reed's Machine album, where it was just random noises and things like that didn't pan out. There's a rumor that if you can strip away some of the layers of sound on Dark Side of the Moon, that you can hear that. Well, so then they do Wish You Were Here, which is Roger Waters' apology to kicking Syd Barrett out. During the making of this album, a guy shows up that no one recognizes. No one knows who this guy is. He's just hanging out in the studio. And one of the techs recognizes him and goes, "Holy shit, that's Syd Barrett." And like, he wanted to be a part of him and wanted to be in on it. And they had to tell him no while they're making this album about him. Right. And it royally fucked up Roger Waters big time and really messed with his psyche. And during Animals, Roger Waters started getting very politically active. And you have the songs were all around political classes. The songs were dogs, pigs, and sheep. And he's getting very much into all of these classes, into this type of thing. And while they're on tour, his anger about how fans are and how things are kind of changing around him and how erratic he is, he, during tour, actually spit on one of the fans in his anger, stopped the show, stopped the tour, locked himself in a hotel room, and came out with 2 albums. And they were The Wall and The Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking. And he presented them to the band and said, "We're doing one of these 2 albums." And the bands looked at each other and went, "Well, we can't do Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking. It's too personal." And if you know anything about The Wall, it's an incredibly personal album. It digs at every member of the band's faults and all these issues. And during The Wall, that really there's a big riff going on because we're writing these songs about these fucking infidelities and all these dark sides of ourself. And Rick Wright was getting heavy in the coke, so Waters fired him and during that album, and Rick's contribution was to turn up and sit on the sets and just basically be a producer. He was basically out. And then they came out with another album called The Final Cut, which at some points in some of the songs, no one's doing anything. Waters wrote all the lyrics and the music at this part. And Gilmour wanted to ask to delay the recording so he could write some songs, and Waters says, "Fuck you. You you're going to do what I do." So there are people that consider it Roger Waters' The Final Cut with Pink Floyd. There are songs on there where none of the other members are on it except for Mason. Mason was doing the drums. So at this point, Gilmour, now there's nothing going on, and Gilmour came out with an amazing album, a solo album called About Face, and Waters began touring for The Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking, which he went and wrote without those guys' consent, and they were pissed off about that. And everyone's like, "What's going to happen to Pink Floyd?" And Roger Waters like, "We're done. We're fucking done." And he, in an interview, he didn't even tell Mason and Gilmour that they were done. And there was a lawsuit around this about the name and all these things. And it eventually went into Gilmour. Gilmour won the lawsuit and got the name of Pink Floyd. And they did Momentary Lapse of Reason, which was a terrible album, probably their weakest album of all of them. And Rick Wright actually wasn't considered a actual member of the band. He was considered a session musician. He hadn't actually been hired as an official band member. He was paid as a session musician for Momentary Lapse of Reason. Then they took a long hiatus to work on more solo works and personal things. They finally put out The Division Bell, where they brought Rick Wright back in as an official member. I feel it's way better than Momentary Lapse of Reason. And then after that, it's just Drama City. I mean, the only time they ever got back together was for Live 8. They couldn't fucking stand each other. It was the first time in 2005 that all members were there. People thought there was going to be a bigger reunion. And no. Nope. They had, as a matter of fact, the Live 8 was the first time that Gilmour and Waters have talked to each other in 24 years.
Yeah. Yeah, so, it's a downer of a story, no doubt about it. And remind everybody what ended up happening with Syd Barrett.
Well, Syd Barrett ended up passing away. He died in 2006 at the age of 60. And then Rick Wright passed away of cancer in 2008. And, that was, in 2010, Waters and Gilmour did perform together at a charity. But other than that, that was it. And just to kind of appease the fans, because everyone wanted another album, they put out an album called The Endless River in 2014, which is essentially just like the Beatles' Let It Be, where the Let It Be is not a real Beatles album. I don't think people realize that. That a lot of those things were just bits that they had done, and then they'd bring them in individually to kind of record and create new parts. And that's exactly what Endless River is. It's just they had all this leftover. Most of it was from the Division Bell, and they just recruited a bunch of session musicians to do new parts for it and just throw it out there, just to give the fans something. And they said, and Gilmour stated, "The Endless River is Pink Floyd's last album. I think we have successfully commandeered the best of what there is. It's a shame, but this is the end." And there was no supporting tour.
Yeah.
Yep.
So not a happy ending.
Not a happy ending.
But Roger Waters still does tour, doing The Wall. Yep.
And Gilmour does tour and does things, and he will bring Mason in occasionally with him. Mason's with another band, still doing drums, a little bit here and there, and a session musician. But yeah, I mean, they do a lot of things. I mean, I'm a big fan, honestly, of a lot of Roger Waters solo work, and especially that political side that he took. Radio Chaos is, they're all constant. I mean, the thing with, you can look at every single Pink Floyd album, every single one is a concept album. And that's amazing for everything that they've done. Every single one is a concept album.
All right. Well, I'm excited then to start talking about our choices for who's going to put this all together into a film. And who is going to play these iconic roles.
Yep. And real quick, I just want to say, that was me glossing over a lot of shit. Like, there's so much more that went on, you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's decades, like I said earlier, it's decades of work, of music. You can't get into all of it, but I think that was a pretty good synopsis, at least, of, the beats that we would see in a film project. So let's go now to who we would pick to helm this thing. I can't remember. Did I go first last time, or did you?
You went first last time. I think.
I think you're right. So
I did. Because well, whatever. You go first. Fuckface. Go first.
All right, we'll do. So finding a director for a project like this is not easy. I mean, you can look at kind of the stable of those who have done musical biopics and pick a name out of there. And that's tempting to do because they kind of know how to infuse story and music. I decided to take a bit of a risk with my pick. I picked somebody that I know is a big Pink Floyd fan first and foremost. He's also an amazingly talented director. And he used a very famous Pink Floyd song in one of his earliest works. But before I go into that, because that's going to probably help you figure out who it is, the thing that sold me on him was an Entertainment Weekly article I had seen that he had submitted his, I believe it was like 10 must-have albums, or albums that everybody should own, whatever.
Yep.
Number one on the list was Obscured by Clouds,
I
because
love that album, and everyone should own that album.
I think that, to be more accurate, it's an album everybody should know. And the reason why he put it that way is because it is the band in complete transition from A to B that you kind of touched on.
Such an underrated album. It's so good.
Now, the part that's going to give it away, the song that he used, I thought extremely well, and that was a big part of his, I believe it was his debut feature, was Hey You.
Okay, I don't know the director yet.
But you'll know the film when I say it starred Jeff Bridges and Laura Linney as a divorcing couple in 1980s Brooklyn.
Oh,
featured a young Jesse Eisenberg.
Yes, Squid. You're talking about Squid and the
Whale. Squid and the Whale. The director is Noah Baumbach.
Okay.
He's done other projects since, of course, his latest being Marriage Story, which I have yet to see.
I have yet to see Marriage Story with Adam Driver.
Yeah, and Scarlett Johansson, which is supposed to be phenomenal. But yeah, just kind of going mostly off of how he did Squid and the Whale. You were in a time, but it didn't feel like, as you used early in the show, nostalgia porn, or he wasn't beating you over the head with signs of the times. He just brought you into that world, and you just were there. I think you kind of need that with Pink Floyd. I think the story of the band and their members, you don't need to get caught up in, and glossing out, the 60s and 70s and going overboard there. I think a bare bones approach to that and making it feel natural and lived in would go a long way. So, I trust him with character. I think that's something that has to be mastered for a project like this, because the characters are everything, and what they produce is so much more. It means so much more and hits you so much harder when you know their stories, especially the early days with Syd Barrett, of course. But yeah, so Noah Baumbach would be my
huge.
pick.
That's huge. I love your pick. Honestly, I love your pick, and I'm already telling you I'm going to give you that one.
Okay.
I went with, I thought more of the 60s, the 70s, the psychedelic, the 80s. Even then, a lot of what was going on with Pink Floyd, and there's so much life imitating art, imitating life with them. It is so fascinating. And in my version of the movie, I saw a lot of trick photography, a lot of interesting cinematics, a lot of framing, a lot of setting up the scenes and creating this blend of what is reality and what isn't reality. Because there was so much of that going on in the band, not just because of the drugs and everything, just because of everything that was going on in everybody's lives. I mean, these guys went through a ton of divorces together. They went through band members. They went through all these things, and I really wanted to portray that in the cinematography. And I was really, my driving force for this one was Inception. So I picked Christopher Nolan to be the director for it.
Wow.
Because I wanted to see him do a lot of interesting shots, framing, cinematic with the drama versus like an action movie. I really wanted to see him bring some of that forward, almost like a modern version of Fear and Loathing without some of the camp factor.
Did you look into at all whether Christopher Nolan is a Pink Floyd fan? Would that have been a criteria for you?
It wasn't have been a criteria, because I do think one of the things that I am tired of, and I will admit, is a lot of these, and I didn't want to go into a biopic person because I'm not a fan of a lot of these biopics. This is what was also really hard for me, because I wanted to get away from it. And, I think about a lot of those things. in terms of, because when you are a fan, one of the downsides is like I talked about, there's all these different lenses and all these different sides to the stories, and typically each Pink Floyd fan, and I think if Joe was on, he would tell you, kind of lean towards, it's almost like are you a Lennon fan or are you a McCartney fan? Do you side with Waters more so? Do you side with Gilmour more so on what was going on? So I actually think that is could be somewhat of a hindrance, because you're going to kind of be taking a side, whereas I kind of my version of it, I'd want those things to be kind of opaque or translucent, where you don't really know, and some of it is, you're taken away from what is real, what is actually happening, and what is going on in some of these, and their interpretation of what is happening.
Okay, interesting. So going to the band members, the order I'd like to do them, if you're okay with this, would be Roger Waters, David Gilmour, Richard Wright, Nick Mason, then save Syd Barrett for last.
Save Syd Barrett for last. Yes, absolutely. So we're gonna do Waters.
Yeah, Gilmour. Why don't you give us your Roger Waters to start here?
Yeah, so now I'm gonna full on. I mentioned I hinted at this a lot. There's gonna be a lot of cheating in mine.
Yeah,
and what I meant by cheating is I am going hard on with my particular version, with all the film trickery, is you're scanning 40 years of people's lives. So there's going to be a lot of de-aging and a lot of aging of these characters as well, is how I looked at it. So when you look at all these things, understand that I am going hard on the effects level of this, and really that's why I wanted Nolan, was because I really wanted some, the effects level on it. So for my Roger Waters, I picked a guy that I've used before. You didn't like him. I could not come up with someone else other than Adam Driver.
Yeah, that's who I picked too.
Is it? Yeah. Yeah,
he looks just like Roger Waters.
He looks just like him, and you do that de-aging and aging and everything. Yeah, there's the gravitas. Yeah, okay, so that's done. All right, got?
I wouldn't go just to throw this in here. And as far as the process, I mean, I don't think Noah Baumbach's going to be all about. He'd definitely be all about working with Adam Driver, because he just did, and they both got nominated for Oscars in the process. But
that's why when you said him, I thought, okay, whether you take my director or your director, Adam Driver is going to win, because he can work with.
I think he was the natural pick, but I wouldn't go with the de-aging. I mean, I would rely on tried, trusted, true, makeup that is has been getting a lot better as far as aging, makeup, and stuff. I mean, I went with a younger band. I also went, as you'll find out as I go into my next pick here for David Gilmour, I wanted to stress people that had a musical background. Now, Adam Driver is the only pick that doesn't.
Okay.
But Adam Driver is super talented, and he's playing a bass player with a bad voice. So
I'm going to say this as well. One of the things I don't like about biopics is that they have new versions of the songs played by the actors on them. I would be using the original pieces of music. I would not be fucking with what was Pink Floyd. I didn't like it when they did with Queen. I didn't like it when they. I didn't like it.
No, I should clarify then that I agree with you there. But I want actors that look like they belong on a stage.
Sure, absolutely.
So I wouldn't. Adam Driver wouldn't be playing the bass and singing.
Yes,
but it would be pretty easy instrument to feign playing, and a pretty easy voice to be believable coming out of his mouth, that kind of thing.
Got it. Okay, so who's your Gilmour then?
David Gilmour. I did go with the musician. I would definitely not say he is a David Gilmour type of musician.
Okay.
But he has proven that he can act. He has a likability factor that I think is key. I think he's kind of got I always thought of David Gilmour as the good-looking,
absolutely,
Floydish. And so I went with Harry Styles.
Ooh, okay. I went more on the good looking. Again, with this one, I really wanted to get the looks down, because as you're doing makeup, I'm doing the aging, I'm doing effects. And I do think that they're, especially in his youth, these two looked very, very, very similar. If you put a beard on mine or took the beard off of Gilmour, I think that more people would have made this comparison. I went with DiCaprio.
Oh, okay.
I went with Leonardo DiCaprio. Abso-fucking-lutely. I think there's a very, very similar look there to them.
Okay. Richard Wright, Rick Wright. Who did you go with here?
Again, going off of looks, going off of what this was, going off of. There's one character in here that I kind of had a forced look because I really wanted him in the movie. But with this particular one, I went with Spock. I went with Zachary Quinto.
Hmm.
I think there's definitely a look there. You put a beard on him again. You look at some of those iconic black and white photos of them in the 70s. There is a definite link between those two.
Okay. I mean, I wasn't letting looks be the end all be all on my end. Not saying you were, but I mean, I guess I maybe stressed them a little bit less.
Yeah.
I went for my Rick Wright. I wanted somebody that could look vulnerable. My impression of him is he was always kind of the one that he was easily cast aside. You kind of laid out some of the, I mean, part of it for certainly his own behavior, but he's kind of the whipping boy of the group, a guy that could pull off that look of being that.
Okay.
I went with an actor called Charlie Heaton, and he's best known. I should have written the character name down. He plays the older brother of Winona Ryder's sons in Stranger Things.
Oh, yes. Okay. I know who you're talking about. Okay. All right. And finally, you're Nick Mason.
Well, not finally, because we still got.
Oh,
Sid,
yes. I'm sorry. Yes, we still got Sid. Who'd you got for Nick Mason?
Nick Mason. I wanted somebody that could drum.
Yep.
Did
you McConaughey?
No, no, not quite.
Jim Carrey.
Can they drum?
Yeah, both of them can.
Oh, cool. No, I went with somebody that I believe. Yes, you picked before for a different project. I went with Jason Schwartzman.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. I picked someone that is musically inclined on my particular one, and I really wanted him in this because I love him as a person, and I think that he can get. I think he could. Nick Mason was, I argue. I don't know. Well, we'll get into that. Nick Mason was probably the only member that was on every single album, and I don't know. I just see him playing this character really well, being the kind of the grounded character, which goes against type for him. But I know he can do it. Paul Rudd.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get into the main event here. Sid Barrett. This is a tough.
If we didn't land on the same Sid here, because I went off of looks. What do you have for Sid?
I went less off of looks.
Okay, then we did. Then I know we didn't.
Okay, because I mean, I say that, but I think I don't know. In some of the project I see this guy in now lately, I get surprised that he can look very different. He's turning into, speaking of Leo, he's turning into a very DiCaprio-esque character in some of the recent films I've seen him in. Is that very transformative? I can see him finding a way. I know he can do all of the emotion and all of the mental illness, if that's what it was, or the drug-addled mental illness or whatever. But the looks thing, I think he could get there too. I picked Robert Pattinson.
Okay. Oh yes, I can see that.
If you need a point of reference to how he could do it, just watch The Lighthouse.
Well, yeah, no, I can. I was already thinking it from Cosmopolitan. I think he could do it. I actually think he is a far more better actor than people were giving him credit for. I wasn't a huge fan of the Twilights. I honestly never watched a full one through, but it wasn't because of my hatred of Robert Pattinson. I actually think he's solid.
I'm telling you, yeah. I mean, if you want to see what he's capable of, and the best.
Which one is that? The black and white Lighthouse movie?
Yes, with Willem.
Yeah, I did see that. Yes, he was really good in that. Yes.
Yes. Okay. So who do you got for Sid Barrett?
I think you're gonna like mine, and you're gonna laugh when you hear it. But when you look at him,
okay,
you're gonna go, "Holy shit, that is Sid Barrett." And I took him because, as much as Sid Barrett was an influence in the actual length of the movie, he's maybe only in it for 20 minutes. Because a lot of what goes on happens after Sid is gone. He just kind of lays the groundwork of getting the band together, going through the mental illness, and it's that. hangover that is being in there. So he's actually not in the movie that much, and I think he could do it. I mean, and I question it, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because of the look. BJ Novak.
Oh. Huh. Now I will say that my Pink Floyd movie, I think it'll be structured a little different than yours. It sounds like yours is basically the runtime splits up over the length of time of Pink Floyd. I'd say mine would probably be more early years specific, and then maybe on the back end touching on some of the later developments. But it would more so be about the early years, and then the transition away from Sid, and then that him still being a presence, as you mentioned with the Wish You Were Here recording, and so on. So that he would be a bigger character.
In yours, yes, and in mine, not so much. Like I think a lot of what the bulk of like what I find more interesting about Pink Floyd is more around animals and the late 70s, 80s era where a lot of the drama took place, and then moving into the Gilmore era, and then mine would end with the reunion tour, and then them refusing to get back together.
Sure.
And then the deaths of Barrett and Wright, and that really being it. And, kind of end with just Nick, and mine would probably end with Nick and David in the studio finalizing the Endless River, and it would cut.
Right. Okay, so let's talk about our pick, shall we? Director, you say you conceded that to me before you even gave yours.
Yeah, because you know what? I like the way it's done. I like what you're doing there.
Mm-hmm.
The only other thing is I think my story is very different, and mine would be very effects driven.
Yeah.
Because I'm spanning
5 decades.
Right. Now, the thing that I want to say though with Christopher Nolan, you kind of like really hammered on the effects. Now, from when I think of Christopher Nolan movies, I think of a lot of more practical effects as opposed to visual effects.
But there was a lot of visual effects again in I think about in Inception. The fact that Nolan, did the voice modulation in the Batman movies, and used some digital trickery and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think about the way he could tell a story. I mean, yes, it was convoluted as fuck, but the Amnesia, what was that? It wasn't
Inception.
Amnesia. And no, not Inception. The other one, the one with the guy going where time is going back.
Memento.
Yeah. Right. There was a drama there. There was really interesting characters there. It was told oddly enough. Mm-hmm. So that's why I really landed on Nolan. So I'm like, he could do these things and make it very Fear and Loathing-esque.
Sure. It's the next one we don't even get to debate because we picked Adam Driver, each of us, for Roger Waters. So if there ever is a Pink Floyd movie, he's going to need to be cast as Roger Waters.
Absolutely.
So David Gilmour, then we go. You had Leo, right?
I had Leo.
Gilmour. I had Harry Styles.
I just think, for me, I go on the looks and I go, God damn it! Even with makeup, it's so easy to make Leo look like Gilmour.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I don't dispute that at all. I'll give you this one.
Okay.
I mean, I like Harry Styles for it, but I think Leo, like Adam Driver, has the talent quotient to be able to convincingly play a musician and play him well. So I'll give you this one.
All right.
Richard Wright. I had Charlie Heaton.
Yes.
And remind me again, yours was
Zachary Quinto. Yep. And again, for mine, you throw. I mean, you look at a picture of 1970.
No, I can see it because I looked at pictures for a while, and I'll acknowledge that you win on the looks. He's kind of got very similar mouth structure, like around the mouth, especially.
Yeah.
But
I just don't know. I don't know if I mean, yeah, he's done Stranger Things, but what has he done outside of Stranger Things? I mean, Zachary's done a lot of things out there, and he's a little bit more of a heavyweight that could play the role, I think.
Okay, I'll give you that one then. I'm okay with that.
Okay, all right.
Nick Mason, Schwartzman for me.
and Paul Rudd for me. And I wanted Paul Rudd in this movie. I cannot tell you why, but I was like, Paul Rudd needs to be in this movie.
I can't tell you why you would want that either.
No, it was just something about it. Like, I've been watching a lot of interviews with him because I've been going down YouTube rabbit holes, and just something about him personally. He's a very closed off dude, honestly. When you really look at interviews with him and things like that, he's very closed off. Now, I will argue with you that when it came to Rick Wright, I don't think he was the whipping boy. Rick Wright was up there with in the early days of being the co-writer of a lot of musically driven songs with Waters. Those two collaborated really, really heavily. Nick Mason, more so in my mind, was the guy that was told to shut up and do it. Just drum how we want you to. Drum like this. Do that. He was kind of the rock in all of it. But I'm going to go with yours because Schwartzman does play drums. And in all honesty, what is highly overlooked for the beautiful piano work that is done, the intricate melodies that are done, that progressive drum beat. And if we're using real clips of the music, that is not an easy style of drumming to learn. That is like hardcore 70s progressive, Phil Collins style, Who style, Genesis, style drums, which is not easy to do. And I think Schwartzman would be able to mimic it better on stage and on tape than Paul Rudd would be.
You know what, though? And they both are kind of, I mean, Jason Schwartzman, I would say, I don't know if that's even true. They've both done like serious work. I think both of them.
Oh, yes.
But they are kind of like their bread and butter has kind of been lighter
comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they've both done serious and have performed very well in real drama.
Yeah, and they're both likable. Like, just, I mean, and I can see why you would take Schwartzman, I guess, because they're both likable, and you kind of want the guy that's the backbone, or had been there the whole time, and maybe is able to take, these hard personalities with a bit of a grain of salt. You'd want them to be an affable actor.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. But yes, I'm going to give you Schwartzman on that one.
All right. Well, I think Sid Barrett, this is going to be tough. I really like my Robert Pattinson for Sid Barrett.
I do too. And I think, again, if I were to, you put him in a room together, I think Pattinson has a better thing. Again, going off of looks, BJ Novak, oh my God, does he look like Sid Barrett? Holy shit.
Does he sound like him, though? Because BJ Novak's got a higher register. Is this that's
going to be the trick, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to give you Patterson. I am. I think with enough digital trickery on mine, you could do it. With enough, all these guys were kind of bearded out a little bit, not so much Barrett. But Barrett, in my version, he's only in for about 20 minutes. Right. It's all about the shadow of Sid Barrett on my version than it is Barrett actually being there.
See, I was going to ask, can BJ Novak even grow a beard? But then I remembered there was like a bit of an Office subplot where he had a goatee for an episode. So
yes.
Oh wait, no, he had a whole season where he had like five big time 5 o'clock Hulk Hogan WCW 5 o'clock shadow for basically.
You have to understand that Sid was involved in the early to late '60s where beards were really becoming a huge thing. Long hair was, but the beards weren't really there yet. The Pink Floyd, all of them pretty much had facial hair by like 73, 74.
Right.
Not really in the early '60s. They were still very pretty boy hanging out in the psychedelic ages, getting whatever fucking poontang they could get.
Sure. All right. Well, shit, we did it. We got through it, man.
That was fun, and I loved it. And once again, another episodes go by where we land on the same person.
Yeah. I think we're just learning that every now and then there's just an inevitable pick, and Adam Driver turned out to be the one for this episode. Absolutely.
And great. I'm glad, because I think the last time I used Adam Driver, we didn't take him. So I'm glad that we're taking Adam this time.
You're correct. You drafted him for Bret Hart.
They did draft him for Bret Hart. That's right. And I said no. So this is far more better. I'd rather, if I couldn't have him as my Bret Hart, I will totally take him as my Roger Waters.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, cool. Let's go to our last ad break then. And then I'm being told you have a special surprise.
There's a surprise. There's a surprise coming on. So, yes.
Well,
yes.
we got to hear that. We will be back in a little bit here and hear what Tom's big surprise is.
Does it seem like it's a rare condition in this day and age to read any good news on the newspaper page? Is being stuck indoors all day, every day, with your family starting to get you down? Time to break out the brand new Family Matters board game. Fun for all ages and up to 6 players. Play as Carl, or Urkel, or one of the other ones, as the Winslows attempt to solve the mystery of the broken vase. Did you do that? It's love and tradition of the grand design, plus hours of family fun with the Family Matters board game. Order yours today.
Don't give me your reasons to stay. I won't be listening, babe.
And welcome back to Cast That Movie, and we are about to put another one on the books. But before we do that, Tom, I am told you have a special surprise for me and everybody listening.
We do. So for those of you, this will mean more to those of you that listened to the last podcast. And if you're not listening chronologically, you're missing out, kids. I promised that I was going to write a protest song to get Clint Howard back because I love Clint Howard and I want my Clint Howard. So what I have done is I took the time during this time frame to write a song about Clint Howard to bring him home. And hope you like it. Here's the song. Here it goes. 1, 2, 3.
Gentle giant, eat my dust. Grand Theft Auto, rock and roll high school. Come home, Clint. Come home, Clint. Trump doesn't love you, only I do. Come home, Clint. Get crazy, gung-ho, cocoon. I guess he will speak. Come home, Clint. Come home, Clint. Trump doesn't love you, only I do. Come home, Clint. Trump doesn't love you, only I do. Come home.
Come home, Clint. I love you.
Well done, sir. Well done. Well done.
I
Yes.
hope he hears it. I hope he hears it. It's my next single on the album that will never come out.
All right. Well, I think that was a very quality end to our latest endeavor here in this podcast business. It was a lot of fun. We got to talk about a couple of very interesting, one very interesting project and one absolute shit show that we would try to salvage. It's been good times. Let's what do we got? I don't know that we've rested on an original project for next episode, but I think we have talked about and kind of settled on or on a recast. Why don't you tell everybody what that is, Tom?
Yeah, we settled on something that we talked about in the last episode and I brought up over time, and I just think it's time that we nailed it. There was recently a documentary that came out about it that I've been fascinated with, and that is the Island of Dr. Moreau.
Yeah.
That needs to happen with the version with obviously Marlon Brando and Val Kilmer.
Yes. That's going to be another challenge, man. We are not easy on ourselves, are we?
We are not easy on ourselves, dude. We really kick ourselves in the nuts all the time.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's been fun. It's been real. Like us, listen to us, share us. We are on YouTube. We are on Facebook. We are on SoundCloud. We are on the Joad .blog as well. So be sure to check that out, as well as the other content, as well as your Twin Peaks podcast.
That's correct. Yeah, there's a lot going on, guys. You need to be checking us out and viewing it. And like I said, if you're not paying attention and listening chronologically, there's a lot you're missing, because there's a lot of things that tie together and go into why we go into the next episode the way that we do.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, we will be back in a couple weeks with Island of Dr. Moreau recast somehow, and another amazing original project that we would like to be seen made into a film. It's been a great time. Everybody take care of yourselves, and we will talk to you in 2 more weeks. All right?
Bye!
Bye!